So let's get to talking about some basketball stuff. I did want to start with this Indiana Pacers thing. Quick question before we get started. I'm going to start it here with Carl. What were your perceptions about Indiana as a team coming into this season, even with having a new head coach in Rick Carlisle? What were your expectations for this team?
Well, considering how decent, or I should say how great of a coach Rick Carlisle has been for the Dallas Mavericks, I thought they were going to be, I didn't think they were going to be a top tier East team. That's too much to ask, but I kind of thought they were going to be at the 7 to 8 and maybe like 9 to 10 play-in spot, but you all see that happening? It's probably not going to happen, most likely.
I mean, and it could,
10, maybe 10 or 9 or 10, but.
And here's why I don't think that's going to happen, because I thought the same thing. I did think that they're going to be back to being somewhat of like a really good playoff contender. I think their ceiling was actually being like a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference during the regular season. I didn't know what was going to happen with them during the playoffs or whatever, but I did think they had the roster. And as you mentioned, having Rick Carlisle there, I did think that they would at least be a really good regular season team. Then we see what's happening right now, and then it's starting to look like this dumpster fire. And as we all know, they're now taking calls. Indiana's front office is now taking calls to trade potentially Damontas Sabonis, Myles Turner, Caris Levert, and maybe some other pieces. I don't know if they're going to move all of those guys by the deadline, but it looks like that's the direction. At least 1 or 2 of those guys are going to be out. So that's why I don't think now, obviously now they've gotten off to a really slow start. Yeah, if they wanted to get it together, they can actually get back in the playoff picture. It's way too early for them to just be out of it completely, but I don't think it's going to happen simply because of the fact that it looks like they're going to move forward, with this trade. Blake, or with one of these trades, one of these guys. Blake, what was your perception with Indiana? Pretty much the same way? Like, did you kind of think this was just going to be did you think they're going to be a good regular season team? Like, what'd you think of coming into the season?
Of course not. I thought they were probably going to be like 8, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in that range. I didn't think they'd be anywhere challenging for a playoff spot at all. I didn't think that at all. I thought this would probably be another rebuilding year, another down year, but it's just falling apart.
It's weird with Indy because we're reading stuff now about this rebuild. They're in a weird spot because, as I mentioned, I didn't mention it yet, but they have a really good core. I think they have a really good core when they're talking about Malcolm Brogdon and Caris Levert and Damontas Sabonis and Myles Turner, and also bringing in Chris Duarte and all of that. So, it's disappointing seeing a team that I think has a really, really solid roster and really some solid bench pieces. Like you talk about TJ McConnell. Obviously, now I think he's out for the season, but he's one of the better defensive point guards in the NBA. There was Isaiah Jackson we didn't get to see a ton of and all of that. But I did think on paper this team was going to be able to try to make another run, but then again, it kind of comes to a thing that we talked about before. If we're continuously seeing the same thing with the team every single season, for Portland, we're consistently seeing them get to the second round or first round and out. Yep. Or with Denver, we're continuously seeing them getting second round and out or just not getting over the hump. What's another team that's just every year is kind of the same thing? Maybe there's definitely
Sixers have been inconsistent as far as me.
Yeah.
The Blazers.
Yeah,
probably it.
Yeah, that's what I think of. And so with Indiana, it's just kind of been this thing for a very long time since Celtics, exactly. And so with Indiana, it's been this way for a long time to where they've just been mid. And I'm also not mad at their front office work because I think they've gotten some great pieces. We all thought they made out well with that Caris Levert trade last season. Was that last season when they went out and got him? I think when that 3-team trade. Yeah. And so now you look at him right now and really slow start to the year. The efficiency's not all there. He's not that. I think I expected him at least to be like a borderline all-star this season, and it's just really not happened. And then you look at some other parts, there's the Myles Turner thing. And then disappointing thing is he's a guy we look at as one of the elite defenders in the NBA, and Indiana fans love him. Now he feels as if, and I think we've all pretty much knew this, we feel as if he's kind of being pigeonholed right now in Indiana, just sitting out there on the three-point line and doing nothing else. I made the point, I think on Twitter today, that Myles Turner is having damn near the same problem Kristaps Porzingis had with the Mavs, to where he's a 7-footer who I think has a wide skill set, but we're just seeing him sit out there on the three-point line the entire time. So a bunch of stuff is just indicating that, okay, even at their best, this team still had pretty much kind of a low ceiling. They were going to be a playoff team. at best, but then there was going to be nothing over that. So maybe I don't want to act like I'm super surprised that they want to go in this direction where they want to rebuild, because it had to happen at some point. Like you talk about free agency, no one really wants to come to Indiana in free agency. You know what I mean? So it kind of looks like for them to try to make that next step. No one wants to do it, like it kind of looks like, yeah. And it looks like for them to want to make that next step, it's got to end up becoming a trade, and you're going to have to move away, one of your core guys or whatever, and that's, like I said, it's really rough to see because I really think this team has a lot of talent. I really thought Caris Levert was kind of finding his home in Indiana, and who knows, he still could, even so, who knows what could happen. But it's been disappointing because seeing a team that looks pretty solid on paper as far as the Eastern Conference goes, and they get a new coach in Rick Carlisle, and now we're in this position where they say they want to rebuild. Who would you guys want to see move for, or Carl, are you going to make another point?
No, I was just surprised I haven't heard like Malcolm Brogdon in the trade rooms too, since they were talking about everybody else. That's like, I don't like, if you're going to like say you're going to have trade rumors about Sabonis or Myles Turner and Caris Levert, I haven't heard about Malcolm Brogdon. That's very surprising.
It's weird having all those guys on the block, because even if you deal away two of those guys, is keeping two else, like those two other guys, doesn't make sense for a rebuild. You're thinking, like, do they want to do they want to straight up clean house like in the middle of the season? Is that what it is?
I mean, that wouldn't be a bad idea if you keep being in the same spot you are like we're in the past years. I mean, that's like, what else? What could be worse than that besides you being like couple games, like probably 10 games worth or whatever.
Yeah.
But doing that, you get a lot of draft capital and you can get some good players back. So it can definitely be beneficial.
Yeah. It's just, like I said, it's just tough to see. Like, and I never really thought, like, I think like Damontas Sabonis is one of the most underrated big guys in the NBA. And I just never thought, and it looks like, it doesn't look like he's going to be here the entire season with the way everything's working. Like, I don't know who's going to get moved first, but I hate seeing guys who are so good kind of have, I don't want to say their prime's wasted because he's still got a couple years left to go, but it's kind of tough seeing them like in probably their best years in a team situation like this. You would think the Rick Carlisle thing would be the tipping point to where they finally become something good. Like we all talked about how bad of a coach Nate Jorkin was last season, and we thought and we thought that was the issue. And then now Carlisle's back, and then shit's just still not getting figured out. So
it's just they in Indiana. Like whoever thinks about Indiana, I'm sorry.
Indiana is basketball city, though.
I know, but like,
and they've had great teams.
I know. I just never thought about Indiana. Like I think about Charlotte before I think about going to Indiana. I don't know.
We shit on a lot of cities on this show.
Well, yeah. I mean, what have been the ones we talk bad about though?
We talk bad about
Oregon. We was talking bad about Oregon.
Utah.
Yeah, we talked about Utah last episode. We talked about Portland. We talked about Maine. They don't have a basketball team, but Blake said some shit about Maine last episode. We talked about Buffalo. We shit on a lot of cities or states.
Oh yeah, Blake said both. He didn't say not one of the Dakotas. He said both.
He said fuck both Dakotas. He said Wyoming too or something.
Yeah, Wyoming,
Montana,
all the New Mexico, all of that.
Yeah, but yeah, like I said, it's just really tough to see, and Indiana. It's not like Indiana has a bad standard when it comes to basketball, because we've seen in our times of watching basketball, we've seen some great Pacer teams. Like you're talking about the Paul George led teams where they got to the conference finals and ran into the Heat, who are like one of the best teams of all time. So you just weren't going to get over that hump. But pretty much like at their best, we've seen them be a title contender, and it seemed like since then they have been stable. Like I feel like since Paul George was kind of out and he left, they've been able to kind of maintain some level of stability as a good enough team to watch or whatever. So, yeah,
I'll debate that. Well, no, I think Purdue is a better basketball team than the Pacers right now.
Who?
Purdue, the college basketball team.
Yeah,
it might be a better team than the Indiana. Indiana Pacers.
Yeah, they're more. I mean, that's comparing.
I know. I'm just saying they playing better, even though it's not the same thing because it's college basketball, but. Yeah, they've been having some bad games lately.
Yeah, it's been like I said, it's been rough, and I really did think the difference was going to be the coaching, and it just doesn't look that way. So let me ask y'all this: who's the first guy you guys want to see move from Indy? My first guy is Myles Turner. I really don't. I never liked the Sabonis.
Sabonis.
Well, the first guy is Myles Turner.
Yeah, Myles Turner.
Yeah, first guy, because I was saying. I want to see Myles Turner move because I just hate the way he's been used. Every single year it's just been Myles Turner sitting down at the 3-point line and shooting 3-pointers a whole bunch. Like he's been shooting like 4 a game as a big guy, maybe the last 2 or 3 years. There's been no pick and roll. There's been nothing else. There's not been a lot of attack in the basket or whatever. He's been sitting at like 13, 12 points a game. It really, you can look at it and see this dude's not being optimized. And he was a guy even all the way back in high school and in college who had a lot of hype, and who had a lot of high expectations. I think he was a lottery pick too, right?
Didn't he go to Texas?
With the Texas, and he was that model type of big man who can defend, both can, rim protect and also go out there and switch on smaller guys and can shoot. So he has a really, really wide skill set that just never got optimized there, especially once they brought in Sabonis. It just never felt like he was going to reach his full potential. So Turner's the first guy I would want to see moved. Would it be the same way for you, Carl? Would you think Turner's kind of the first one you want to see out?
No, actually, Caris Levert is the first one I want to see, and then Myles Turner, because I just don't think Caris Levert. I want him in a better situation. Mm-hmm. You all know how much I like Caris Levert. If we could get him, that's not possible. But we can put him out.
Not need anybody else. Y'all need to fix what y'all got going on.
Okay? No, I'm saying if they like this could trade, certain players on the team, but that's not gonna happen. But I want him in a better situation. What would you think would be the best situation for Caris Levert?
Because Caris Levert is this. Caris Levert is a really good third option scorer, right? I really, even though he was good in Indiana, I think the best version of Caris Levert is kind of what he was. And let's say Brooklyn just had Kyrie and Katie, and let's say this is before the Harden thing. Well, this would have been before the Harden thing. Caris Levert, that role he had in Brooklyn before Harden was there, that to me is the best version of him. A good third option scorer, a good guy you can kind of put in there with your second unit when your best players aren't in there. You kind of pick up some slack. That's the type of player I think he could be. So I would like to. I can tell you what teams could use a guy like Caris Levert. I'm not saying they're going to go out there and make a trade for him. Philly could use a guy like Caris Levert. You know what I mean? Dallas could use a guy like Caris Levert. Just a dude who's, I don't think is ever going to be a great first option. I don't even know if he's going to be a great second option, but he's a really good scoring guy. Kind of like a Will Barton type of player. Somewhat like that. You know what I mean? Like a good third, a good reliable guy to get the ball in the hands of and can create a bucket next to your best players.
Yeah. My thing with the Mavericks is, are you still going to keep Tim Hardaway?
Yeah. And that type of deal looks like probably not. You know what I mean? And rightfully so. I think Caris Levert over Hardaway may be a little bit of an upgrade. Maybe. It depends because I don't know. They're probably as good as each other. Yeah.
They're right there to me.
Yeah. Hardaway's a better three-point shooter, so maybe he fits around Luka a little bit better. Maybe you like Caris Levert's upside defensively a little more. I don't know. So Dallas would be kind of a mid place for him to go. But I think a team like Philly or maybe a team like, I don't know, I'm just kind of just throwing names out here. Philly or some other squads out there could probably use him. But, his best version of himself, I think, is going to end up being like a third option type of guy on a really, really good team. That's what I think. That's where I think he's totally going to be optimized. That's why when the Harden trade happened with Brooklyn, obviously you got James Harden, but that team beforehand was pretty damn good and still could have won a title. What I mean? Yeah.
And they still didn't win. Putting it out there. They did all that and it still didn't work. That's what happens a lot of times in sports. You do this to make, a quote unquote super team. Sometimes it don't work.
Yeah.
We've seen that happen a lot.
Part of me is happy that they did make the Harden trade happen because also the Kyrie situation, like it was injuries that pretty much, fucked the Nets over. But still, if they would have kept that core, they would have still been in a really, really good position. Not saying they're in a bad position right now. They're in a pretty damn good position right now, but just naming some spots he can go to. But yeah, Caris Levert would be good to see go out. And then from there, just kind of, just matter of filling out everything else. It's really, I haven't seen a lot of teams just straight up decide. I mean, last time we saw a team decide to just blow it up and go rebuild mode was Houston last season. They were forced into it because of Harden. You know what I mean? But rarely do we see a team during the season say, fuck it, we're giving everything up. You know what I mean? If we see all four of those guys go, like if we see Brogdon and everybody just go out, that's something that'd be insane. Because with the Nets or with the Rockets, it was just giving up one star. With the Pacers, we're talking about them maybe, I don't know what it's going to look like, but maybe giving up their whole fucking core. You know what I mean? That's some different type of shit. That's shit we ain't seen before.